Hey, what's up, guys, gals? Welcome to the 180 Drums podcast. My name is Mark Schroer, and on this week, we have an extremely rad guest on with us. We have Emily Smith, artist rep of the oldest family-owned business in the world. You're probably sitting there thinking, okay, oldest family-owned business in the world, which one's that? Zildjian Cymbals. She's going to talk about what it's like to work at Zildjian, what it's like to work alongside some of the world's biggest drummers, selecting cymbals, and probably the best reason you should listen all the way to the very end of this podcast is because she's going to talk about what she personally looks for as an artist rep looking for new future Zildjian artists. Well, please welcome Emily Smith and Jake Nicole.
Hey guys, welcome to the show. I've got Emily Smith with us, and Emily is actually repping and reaching out to us from Zildjian today. So we're really excited to have Emily on the show, and she's also a killer drummer herself. I was perusing around NAMM with her, and I got to see her show off some chops, so I know she's got them. Emily, so good to have you.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Thanks, Jake.
Tell us a little bit more about yourself and your background and how you kind of got started playing drums.
Yeah, so I started playing drums in my elementary school, just actually playing on the pad as well as learning some mallets.
Nice. What grade did you start in?
Fourth grade.
Oh, nice. You beat me. I think I started around like 6th grade, 5th, 6th grade.
Oh, okay.
Cool. Okay. And you started on the mallets.
Yeah, so they wanted you to get acquainted with actually like reading music before we kind of moved over to the actual snare drum and playing what I wanted to play, I guess.
No kidding. Yeah.
I actually wish back then that I paid attention a little more because I was like, oh, I just want to hit things and, but it was great. I actually took piano lessons too during that time. So I kind of knew how to read music a little bit. But yeah, and then I went on to play in high school, playing in the jazz band and the marching band. And then what's funny was I didn't switch over to really focusing on drums till high school because I was very passionate about basketball.
Cool.
And I don't think anybody told me that as like a 5'4" girl, I probably wasn't going to make it.
I wasn't going to say anything, but I was thinking that right away.
Yeah. But so I didn't make the freshman basketball team and I was devastated. And that same day that I thought my life was like over, somebody came up to me and was like, hey, you play drums, right? And I just said, yeah. And they asked if I would play for the school play. They were doing Grease and they needed a drummer.
Nice.
And so I committed to that. And then I ended up playing for like the show choir, which is kind of like Glee, and playing, in the pit band for that. And then starting bands with friends and stuff and just completely invested myself in drumming. It was like this quick switch overnight.
Oh, that's way too cool. Now give us the background on your location too. Which area of the world are you growing up in?
Yeah, so I grew up in Massachusetts.
Born and raised.
Yeah, born and raised. And I went to college. I went on to go to school in Boston at Emerson College for sound design, actually for film. I've always been passionate about music, and I've really liked how music in the background of film really plays a major role. I feel music can kind of make or break a film or a scene. And so I thought it would be cool, to be like a music supervisor and select the music and also editing audio. And I was back and forth actually on going to school professionally for playing music, or I kind of wanted to learn something different. So that's why I kind of chose to go to school for sound design. And so I went to school at Emerson. And while at Emerson, I got into this program that was called the Entrepreneurship Program. It was actually a 2-year program, and there was only 30 students. It was like really select, and you were supposed to develop your own business out of it. But a part of it was doing an internship. And so Zildjian is actually based in Massachusetts as well. and I didn't want to do some like boring internship. So I was like, I want to do something that I'm actually passionate about. I'm passionate about drumming, and it's a business. So let's combine the two. And I started interning there my senior year of college.
Oh wow! And you've been with Zildjian how long now?
I've been there 4 years actually, as of January. So
Wow. Okay, very cool. Now, we gotta rewind for 1 second because
okay.
you dropped something that's really cool. As you said, music and film. So that lends itself to the question: what are some of your favorite films and the music that adds to it?
Wow. All right. So you know what's funny is I love like all kinds of movies and TV shows. A lot of
Oh,
it,
okay.
yeah. So TV shows is kind of I love soundtracks to TV shows. So even just silly things like Freaks and Geeks, or
Cool.
I was also, this is going to sound, I don't know, maybe it's kind of lame, but I used to watch the OC, and it was
Yes.
total teen drama kind of thing that I loved. That's how I started discovering music. They played a lot of
Ah.
like indie music on it. Um, I remember, I'm trying to think, like they had a lot of bands on there, so they would have like the Killers and Modest Mouse,
Hmm.
and I was like, oh, this is so cool. And it was like this fake club on this TV show or whatever. And everything about like sound and film, like Stanley Kubrick kind of films like that, The Shining, or just even compositions, really, that it's like pivotal moments that what's really cool is to like watch a film and not have the volume on, and how like it
Yeah.
completely is
Ah.
disinteresting. Uh,
Yeah.
so I was always kind of intrigued by that as well.
Well, that's
But
funny because I definitely realized that coming home late night from gigs, I would come home and be sitting at the TV and didn't want to wake anybody up, so I'd be listening quiet. And TV is so boring without, like,
yeah,
obviously without dialogue, but I think of movies like Drive. Have you seen the movie
oh,
Drive?
absolutely, yeah.
That soundtrack, it takes that movie, it elevates it to an entirely different level.
Oh, completely. And I mean, even recently, I mean, Birdman. Did you see Birdman?
Right. Oh my goodness. I mean,
I mean,
just
that's a
drums.
whole other level of to be able to come up with a composition. Antonio Sanchez, for those that don't know, did this entire composition for this film, and it's just drums. And it really, I mean, the drums correlate with his like what's happening in his brain, which is kind of cool, the main
Wow.
characters. And so I almost feel like it's what carries you along, and makes you feel what he's feeling, and this is all happening through drums. I mean, that
Yeah.
to me is just incredible.
Absolutely. Do you have any movies that leave the soundtracks up for a second, but what are some of your favorite movies?
Some of my favorite movies.
I
Um,
feel like every drummer that's intelligent listening to this is going to start sending you email, like just sending you copies of these movies. You're going to get them all to your house, just DVDs by the truckload.
yeah, right. Um, I feel like that's so hard. I go to the movies. I actually worked at the movie theater.
Oh, here we go.
And yeah, and I also go to the movies with my friend Alex like once a week. So and
What?
we go to the movies all the time.
Do you have
But
stock? Do you have stock at Cineplex or what's the deal?
no, I shouldn't. There's actually a bargain night here. That it's like $5 to get into the
Is it
movies on
Tuesdays?
Tuesdays. Yeah, is
There
that a
you
thing
go.
worldwide? I don't know.
You know what? It must be. I'm sure someone decided that Tuesday night no one wanted to go to the movies, so
Yeah, so I always hit.
brilliant.
Yeah, so recently, like I try and always see like the Oscar nominated films, but I just saw Star Wars recently. Like
How good was that movie?
so amazing.
I
That was
think you just need to get a part-time job doing critic reviews. There you
yeah.
go.
There we go.
Whole other business for you. That's awesome. Okay, so I'm starting to trail because I'm interested in all this stuff. It's
I
cool.
know movies. We can like get back to drumming, right?
That's right. Well, I mean, all of it is personality, and what I think is so cool is this podcast is truly about delving into people's personalities. I'm gonna actually trace back to when Emily and I just actually got to meet. For everybody listening, was at NAM. I walked into NAM the last day of NAM, which, by the way,
Yeah.
I'm gonna give away a little bit of a secret, but if you want to talk to people, the best day to be at NAM is Sunday because nobody's there. It's the
It's true.
best day, and at the same time, people have tired ears on Sunday, but
Mm.
if you're just playing it cool, Sunday's a great day. So I walk into the Zildjian booth and I hear Jake 180, and I'm like, what is this? And it's Emily hanging out. We had a great conversation. I ended up ripping her away from the booth so that we could go check out, Big Fat Snare Drum, a whole bunch of other products. But I am saying all this to say that that's how you and I met,
Absolutely.
and I'm forgetting where I wanted to lead with that, but I'm sure that it was somewhere great. What did I want to ask you? Okay, so yeah, having met there, we've gotten a little bit of your background now growing up in school. What was the progression over the last 4 years for you? Like, what's been some of your biggest learning lessons in the last 4 years?
Well, so starting off, I really didn't know if I was going to be staying at Zildjian or, I was
Right.
doing a lot working in theater sound actually, kind of on the side and in Boston as well as some of the theaters as just like kind of a stagehand and an A2. But then I was also working at Zildjian, which was just incredible. And it's a lot to be thrown into. And what was interesting is at the time that I was interning, Sarah Hagen, she's my boss and she's the director of artist relations at Zildjian now. At the time, she was the manager and she was going out on maternity leave. And they didn't really have anybody lined up to kind of stick around during that time. There was the VP of artist relations that would be there, but to handle kind of the day-to-day activities, working with artists, placing orders, that kind of thing, there was nobody there. So they offered me to stay on. And I was just kind of fully submerged into this industry that I'd been there like 2 days a week, right, for like my internship. And then here I am working full time, working with all these drummers. And I was kind of representing the East Coast. And I didn't really have a lot of lead in,
Wow.
but that was probably the best case scenario to really learn because I mean, Sarah was amazing in showing me how to select cymbals. And, I got to work with some of the guys in the factories, some of the cymbal testers, really learning about the product itself and why we make so many different cymbals. And also learning to not be like having a personal preference, kind of like subjective like
Right.
listening and being able to listen for someone else and recognizing their sound and trying to select cymbals for their sound, and being in tune to having someone describe because everybody uses different adjectives and
Yes.
different words to describe the sound that they're looking for. And it's really, I mean, to me, it's a talent within itself to be able to listen to cymbals and not have a personal preference,
Fascinating. Yeah. I mean, have you seen the documentary Somme? I think it's a movie on Netflix documentary called it's all about sommeliers.
No, surprisingly, I have not seen it.
You have to. It's amazing. So it's
Okay.
all about the master somm test, where there's only I think 13 master sommeliers in the world, like
Yeah.
professional top level wine tasters, that are considered master level. So what's cool is it's trailing this guy through his experience in the process of him trying to become a sommelier, and it's crazy how essentially they have to taste a wine and they blindfolded they have to name obviously red, white, they have to go through all that, but then they also have to name things like the actual country of origin, and then getting specific with like every imaginable flavor that's within the wine. They have to be able to describe it to pass this test, and they have to do a few like 100% accurate. It's just
Yeah,
insane, next
absolutely.
level. But all that is to say that in this, he talks a lot about, being subject to finding enjoyment in all kinds of different flavors that he typically wouldn't go after, which is a lot like what you're describing just with sound.
Absolutely. And it's funny you say that one of our cymbal testers that his name's Jeff Westhaver. He's been at the factory 26 years, and he's been a tester, I think, for close to 20 of those years. And he always describes cymbals in relation to wine.
Wow.
And, in different aspects. So one aspect, he'll say that it gets better with time because the metal settles, and just immediately, like in the first week or two, the metal will settle and you'll hear a difference. So he needs to recognize what it sounds like fresh out of the oven versus like a week later after it's gone through processing. But then even after it's completed, what it will sound like a year later. And he can, and then versus, a 20-year-old cymbal. And to recognize not just how it was made, but the reason the metal has settled like that. And similar to wine, how they say it gets better with time. So that's one of his comparisons. But it's also in the selecting process too, selecting your wine choice, selecting your cymbal choice. So
now, when you're going through that process, what kind of sound do you look for? What's your favorite?
So personally on my kit, I play actually the hybrid hats.
Okay, nice.
14s, which to me are a very versatile cymbal that you can play in different genres and get different sounds out of it. And it's going to be cutting enough. It's going to have enough chick. But it's funny because there are a lot of drummers that use them, but at the same time, I don't know if everybody is familiar with what they are. A lot of times people will be like, oh, I use really dark, K-cons or K-light hats are super popular. And then you have people that will go the opposite direction and use their like A custom master sounds. And so to me, the hybrids are such a happy medium. And the whole line is really great, but I use all different things. So then I'll use A custom crashes, and I use a K custom medium ride, predominantly a 22, which is just, I really like the definition of it.
That is such a traditional, that's like a go-to for so many people.
Right, yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, very cool. And what kind of drums are you playing?
I play a Yamaha kit. It's not any thing high end. It's something called a DP series, which they don't even make anymore, and they only made for a short amount of time. But
is this the one with the long lugs?
Yeah, it does have long lugs.
They go from end to end, almost like a recording custom.
No. So it is more similar to.
You were just trying to show me grace there. You're like, yeah, I guess the lugs are long. I don't know.
Yeah, no, but it doesn't go all the way. Yeah, no, I'm picturing
like a teardrop style lug.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, cool, very cool. So you played those drums, and what was your configuration?
So I play 14 snare in just a 12-inch rack and a 14 floor, and it's actually a 20-inch kick, so it's very basic. And I only play hats, one crash, and one ride. I kind of go Black Keys style, I guess, a little bit.
Black Keys style, I like it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And who are some of your musical influences?
So I grew up listening to all kinds of different things, but my dad was really into the blues and classic rock. My parents, it's actually pretty cool. My dad went to Woodstock and
oh, no way.
Yeah, my mom saw Jimi Hendrix in '69, right before he died, in Boston.
No way. I was just in San Francisco. I just got to check out Haight-Ashbury.
Oh man, that's
next level. I bought a way too expensive Gorin Bros hat while I was there just because I had to have it,
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
That's so cool. So I mean, I was always kind of submerged into rock and the typical. My brother plays the drums, and he plays on this huge Ludwig replica John Bonham style kit.
Your brother plays drums too?
Yeah, my brother plays drums as well.
Get out of here.
Yeah, I should give him full credit as to why I started playing drums in elementary school. The funny thing is, he's 5 years older than me, and so drumming was always his thing. And when I went down to the basement and started playing on his kit,
oh no,
he wasn't too thrilled about it because he was like,
Little sis.
yeah, you've got other things going for you. Like drums is what I have. And so he didn't really give me any pointers. But I will say the two of us are lefties, but we don't play the drums lefty. And that was the one piece of advice that he gave me. And I'll say this, I say it always in like a positive light, but he told me like I already kind of have one thing that I have to prove myself as a girl that I can play the drums. But also, you don't want to be switching your kid around to play lefty because then you'd have two strikes against you.
That's very true.
And I always say, it's the best piece of advice that he ever gave me because, I play, regular righty style, I guess. So I'm not switching my kid around. But yeah, I totally would have been a pain in the ass girl that's like messing your kid up with, like, I can't just sit in kind of thing. So
you would just have to be like 10 times better than anyone at the venue.
Absolutely. And I don't think I could overcome those two obstacles. So I had to kind of learn to, and what's funny too is that I did lead with my left hand and stuff, even with snare drum.
Wow.
Which I did have to switch anyway when I got to like high school marching band so that everything looked in sync. But yeah, so my left hand still to this day is a lot. I feel like it's always wanting to do more. So I'll be like doing ghost notes and stuff. It's just always kind of doing like little buzz rolls in between. And but
well, I can help you with that. That's what I do. I can help you with that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, listen, that is way too cool. So you're saying that essentially you play the kit open-handed. Do you play your ride on the left side of your kit then as well?
My ride's on the right. I don't play open-handed. I lead with my right hand. I play normally, yeah, but just my left hand is always doing stuff on the snare, I guess, just because it's sitting there, bored,
hanging out, playing buzz notes and all that kinds of stuff. I love it.
Yeah. So, but no, I don't know. Is it normally? I play normally.
You play normally, yeah. That's like that. I guess that's okay. You're allowed to say normally, but I remember growing up, there was a kid who had an accent in my class, and I said he doesn't speak normal to one of my teachers, and they're like, you're just you speak different to him too, So, anyways,
right.
This is maybe a bit of that where I think it's different in the drum world because normal. I mean, it is what's normal. Everyone plays cross-handed, right-handed. But that's smart. That is really good advice that he gave you because I know a couple guys that play left and if you're listening to this, I mean, I wouldn't imagine there's too many people listening to this deciding which way they're going to play.
Yeah.
But if you were, definitely decide right because even things like front of house guys, when they're coming back to set up your kit, like help with miking or whatever, and they've got to switch their snake around, that can drive people insane. So
right. Yeah, and I'm not arguing against. I mean, I'm a lefty. I'm all for like pro lefty, pro being creative.
Yeah,
whatever,
totally.
But yeah, it's just there's definitely scenarios that you run into that it proves difficult, and so sometimes you have to kind of go towards the norm. I keep saying norm, but
it's true. Yeah, it's true. Absolutely. Or the more popular path, which, again, would be the norm. Now, I'm realizing the more and more we chat that you've done a great job, whether it was navigating through, obstacles where you're choosing paths where the odds are somewhat against you.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel you stood out from, I'm sure, the tons of people applying for an internship with Zildjian? What would you say it was that you, I don't know. I mean, give me your background on even deciding to go into an entrepreneurship program. So as a female in the world of entrepreneur, that's already another thing that's tough too.
Absolutely. Yeah. And even so I studied sound design and I was studying for film, but obviously, Hollywood is where it's at for, if you want to work in the film industry. So what I was finding being in Boston was how can I still kind of activate and be active in the industry of sound. So I started doing more theater sound. And what's interesting too is even in the program itself of sound at Emerson, I was one of the only females. So I think there was one other in my year of graduation, and there was probably like 5 or 6 of us at least, like throughout my classes from like different grades and such. But predominantly it was a male dominated major anyway.
Wow.
I did find there's more girls that were in like film, but not so much in audio. It kind of was more niche to the guys, I guess. But so I have always, I don't know, it's kind of weird, but like drumming is unique to females. Like you said, like even entrepreneurs is kind of unique to females. You hear a lot about male young entrepreneurs and same with the sound industry. So I guess maybe it's like I enjoy the challenge of kind of proving that it doesn't have to be that way.
Right.
But yeah, to that point.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And then what was it that you did to stand out to really try and break through Zildjian?
Right. So I kind of used the fact that I had a sound background, and to me, I mean specifically Cymbals,
No
the
kidding.
company is I mean, they base their business off of sound, you know?
Hmm.
And at the time when I was working there was nobody with a sound background. And that to me was fascinating in itself. But
Wow.
yeah, so I mean, they were a little, I don't want to say behind, but they had YouTube videos being created and everything. But if for anything in-house, they were just using camera sound.
Wow.
And that wasn't their fault at all. I mean, they had a video guy that actually was a graphic designer, Chris. He's awesome. He still works there, and he recognized that they needed video, and the changing world, everything's YouTube and whatnot. And so he kind of developed the video aspect of Zildjian, which is great to his credit. But he didn't have a background in video or in sound. So I kind of felt like I brought the missing link to that. And I was working fully in the artist relations department, but I said, I know this is kind of more marketing but I'd be happy to help out in that aspect. And that's kind of how I think I stood out, is that I kind of presented myself in that way. Listen, I can offer something else to the table besides being a drummer, being able to work with drummers. I can also help out with your videos and help out with your product demos and sound clips for the website and things of that sort. So I think I brought something new, and maybe that's how I stood out and how I'm still there.
I think it's so cool that well, I guess I don't know if you looked for the opening first, but you more so found an opportunity that you were excited
Right.
about, and then found a unique skill set that you had that no one else in the entire organization had, and leveraged it. I mean, that's just brilliant.
Right. Yeah.
Very cool. I love it. Okay. There's a million questions here. As we're talking, there's just things piling up. So talk me through, what does a day at Zildjian look like for you?
So typically, when I get into the office,
Tell us about the commute. How long's the commute?
Yeah. So I just bought a house not too long ago in November.
Congrats.
Yeah, I'm really excited about. I have my own practice space in the basement, which is pretty sick. And
Nice.
so I'm only 20 minutes away from Z.
Nice. Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, which is really nice. I actually don't even have to get on the highway or anything. It's all back roads. So Zildjian's located about like 35 minutes outside of the city of Boston. We're kind of, I won't say we're in the middle of nowhere. It's not like we're hours away from any major city, but we are not right in the city. And that makes sense, because how are you going to fit like a factory in the city? This is
Absolutely.
Our offices is where all Zildjian cymbals are made. They're right in Norwell, Massachusetts. And
Wow.
and it's the only factory in the world. It's the only Zildjian factory. So everything since 1973 on has been made right where I'm working in Norwell, Mass. Any Zildjian that you have from that year on. And previous to that, it was Quincy, Mass.
That is insane. Okay, so and when you're commuting on your 20-minute commute, is it music? Is it eating your breakfast? Is it a podcast?
Yeah. So I actually listen to my college radio station, funny enough.
Cool.
It's Emerson's radio station, ERS, I usually listen to in the morning because they play mostly music. I've switched around, I guess, like through the years of sometimes I'll go to like a talk show or something, but for the most part, I just want to hear stuff. And it's kind of how I discover. It's an independent radio station, so how I'm like able to discover new bands on it. And they're the number one college radio station in the US and have been for years. And they're like on the charts as like a Boston radio station. So they're not like considered like, oh, you can't get reception if you're like 5 minutes outside the city. I mean, they span across Massachusetts. So it's a pretty legitimate station. And yeah, I in the morning get to hear a couple songs and then head into the office.
Cool. Okay, so you play a couple tracks. Who are some cool bands you've discovered lately?
So I've enjoyed Andrew McMahon lately, who's he actually used to be the singer in the band Something Corporate. And
that sounds real familiar. Something Corporate. What was their track? They had like a hit.
They had this like really. So they were like the emo days.
Yes.
Of, that song Constantine.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
That was like the one song I knew on piano for years.
Right. Yeah.
That's so funny.
So, and actually, I've been huge into Wilco's new album. They play Wilco a lot.
Cool.
And I just went to see Wilco and Glenn Cochi. We did some video with him for Zildjian, which was kind of really cool for me.
We'll get into that later. That's so cool. Amazing.
But yeah, all kinds of Lake Street Dive. They're actually out of Boston. I don't know if they've really expanded beyond, but like they sold out. They're playing the House of Blues and it like sold out right away, and I can't even like touch tickets. And I'm like, wow.
You can't touch tickets? I don't believe that. Get out of here. I think I can help you. We can leverage something. There's got to be a way.
But like maybe the drummer should play Zildjian. Like I don't know what he's playing, but
we can figure that out.
Yeah, I can figure that out.
We'll figure that out. That's way too funny. Okay, cool. So you've got a couple cool bands you found from listening to the station. Now let's talk about. So you get into work. What time are you usually getting into work at? What's your day look like?
So I work 9 to 6. More so lately, I work like 9 to 7, 9 to 8, but that's okay. And yeah, so I typically find that I'm not getting a lot of emails in super early in the morning. Artists are usually reaching out either late at night or later in the day, but a lot of times when I get in the morning, I do have emails from the night before of Zildjian artists out on tour and placing orders or getting ready for tour. Actually, this is kind of a busy time because touring season's starting to pick up again, I'm noticing. So generally speaking, I kind of make an outline for my day when I get in, and I go through my emails maybe for the first hour or two, depending on how many emails I have to go through from the day, and just see, kind of prioritize who needs stuff right away. A lot of it sounds silly, but I have to master where in the country they are and figure out how long UPS or FedEx is going to take me to get cymbals to where they need to be and on time.
Wow.
So shipping companies are my best friend as well as my enemy. But
do you have like a contact? Is there like a guy named
contacts? But
there you go.
When it's dealing with like international, even Canada sometimes can be, just doing customs forms and making sure that cymbals arrive on time. Because the worst is, we try and pride ourselves in things getting to where they need to be.
Of course.
So if something gets to a venue a day late, it really stinks because you're trying to contact the venue and get it back out on the road. So a lot of times I end up having to send it back to me, like I return to sender, and we'll send out a whole new package because you can then never guarantee that it's going to get to the next place on time. So
of course.
chasing down cymbals is part of my job, but
I feel like there's just Zildjian cymbals floating everywhere around the world that
yeah,
are
oh, completely. But for the most part, knock on wood, I don't want to say anything. But things have been like really good. I haven't had too many dealings lately with cymbals not getting to where they need to be on time, and so that's a big part of it for me. Like even more so than customer service or something because it
Sure.
is so time sensitive.
Yes.
And I am typically I handle East Coast artists, so anybody east of the Mississippi River. And that's based on where they live, not typically. Sometimes it's like if they're band, but a lot of times people will play for artists. And, if like I always kind of use, for example, like Beyonce's drummer, Vanzella Joy, she lives in New York, but I think Beyonce lives in LA, but Joy is considered like my territory because she lives in New York.
Oh,
So we kind of
right.
do it based on where they live, which it depends. Sometimes the whole band will live in the same place,
Sure, yeah.
But yeah, so I have probably a roster of 500 that I'm handling day-to-day activities for.
500 artists. This is insane. Are you
Yeah,
kidding me?
yeah.
Wow, sometime I'll have to pick your brain about how you organize that because I'm sure that that's a whole other story. And I also feel like there's a side of you that's like we're seeing the nice side of Emily, but I
Oh,
bet you there's some guy named Larry at FedEx that's like, oh my gosh, Emily, that little 5'4" girl is calling me to tear my head off.
yeah. Like sometimes I get like random people on the phone and I'm like, you don't understand. Like I'll be sending something out to like
Oh
Steve
man.
Gadd and it's like the James Taylor tour and it says James Taylor on it. And I was like, you don't know who James Taylor is? And then I'm just like,
Oh
okay,
my
well these
goodness.
need to get there. Like you don't understand. And
Oh
they're like,
yeah.
okay. And then sometimes they get really excited. They're like, oh, I'm so sorry this happened. Like let's get right on this. But sometimes, I mean, it makes sense. Not everybody's into music, but um,
Yeah, sure, but those
like,
aren't people. Those are like robots and stuff.
yeah. Sometimes I feel like I'm talking to robots. No offense to
No offense to any robots listening. Yeah.
any robots listening, but yeah.
Oh, that is way too fun. Okay, cool. So, um, man, what do I want to ask you next? Because there's a few directions we could go. I guess where I'd like to go right now is, who are some of the drummers that you've built really great relationships with, or tell us some surprising stories of meeting different drummers.
So one of my all-time favorite so far experiences has was with Mick Fleetwood.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
and because of my dad, I guess, I grew up kind of listening to the blues and blues guitarists, and I got really big into Peter Green, who was the original guitarist and songwriter of
Right.
Fleetwood Mac. And he wrote the song "Black Magic Woman," which a lot of people attribute with Santana, obviously.
Huh.
But that was a Fleetwood Mac song, surprisingly enough.
I did not know that. Very
Yeah.
cool.
So and he's written like there's other songs, but people aren't familiar with that time period of Fleetwood Mac. It was more the later '70s when Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham joined the band. But I wanted to get the whole story from Mick um, on his life experience. I mean, this has been his band. They're coming up on 50 years actually next year.
Wow.
Uh,
50 years.
Yeah, how crazy.
Oh my goodness. That is
Yeah,
insane.
right? And so one of the most amazing things for me that kind of put it into perspective of what I get to do for a living is I got to interview Mick and I was the one
Wow.
asking him the questions and we actually spoke so long that we divided the video. If you go onto like YouTube, Zildjian's YouTube, it's actually two parts because
Wow.
usually our videos are like 5 minutes long. I think it's like 2 10-minute segments, which is pretty cool. And I got to speak with him. And actually, when I was interviewing him, I don't generally get nervous I get nervous in different aspects of
I
life.
was going to ask you. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So, but this time I was nervous and I had worked with him like all day. Like we had selected cymbals. He had toured the factory, like had a good lunch.
Right.
And then it's like comes time to talk to him. And I don't know if it's because it was like on camera or what, but I was running the audio, and I was just holding the recording device. It's like the H6
Oh
recorder.
no.
And I just like, I noticed I was shaking, and my hand was shaking, and I actually like switched hands to like try and
No.
be like
Yes.
still, and I noticed his eyes went to me, like he probably realized, like he totally saw me make the switch with my hand, and I was like, ah, shit. But I'm sorry, I shouldn't have swore.
That's okay. We've had worse things said on this podcast. That's okay.
Okay. But yeah, it was so surreal for me. That was one of those moments where I kind of just felt the adrenaline going through me, that this is so amazing, that I feel like he probably gets interviewed all the time, but probably in regards to more so the band itself, where I was really excited to ask him the questions about his drumming career and personally what it's like. I mean, there's obviously, I think the Rolling Stones just hit 50 years like a couple of years ago as well.
That's right.
But there's not many bands that have lasted that long, and the human story behind it too, you know. It's a lot. I mean, I can't even imagine doing anything for 50 years, right?
Yeah, I mean, what's crazy to me too is you're getting into a band where, like, it wasn't just a band, there was relationships mixed in.
He spoke to that, you know,
Hmm.
and that's so incredible as well, you know, because that's what happens too. I mean, I've witnessed it myself just from playing in bands, because a music connection with people can feel like a lot more, and it can turn into relationships. Because when you feel that passion for something with other people, it's easy for it to develop into other kinds of passion, you know? So I think that's an interesting subject in itself. But yeah, so that was probably one of my highlights of my career. I don't know what it meant to Mick, but I could tell sometimes. I think my favorite part was that he would kind of smirk every once in a while when I would ask him something, and I think he was intrigued that I knew something, like I actually had some knowledge. I wasn't just asking questions on paper, you know, which kind of spoke a lot. But yeah, and then just I've developed a lot of actual relationships with a lot of artists, you know, beyond just talking cymbals and music. I'm really close with, you just recently interviewed Brian Carter, where we're really good friends now, I'd say.
Did he send you this hey Brian, did he send you this voicemail on New Year's of him singing?
He did.
Oh my gosh. I had a feeling he sent it to people that, you know, that are in a circle, and I right away was like, guys, yeah, I was like, whoever I was with at that moment, I was like, guys, you gotta watch this guy sing, man. He's supposed to just be a drummer. What the heck?
Yeah.
You're not allowed to be good at everything,
I thought that was
Brian.
just me, Jake. You're really disappointing me.
Oh no.
No, I'm
Well, you
kidding.
know what? It gets worse. I think I asked someone else this, hopefully not on the podcast, but someone else who knows Brian. I was
Yeah.
like, did he send you? Because it was like, it was such a good performance that I was like, if
Yeah.
I were him, I would have sent this to my whole contact list.
Right? It's
Just
like saved on my phone forever.
that's right. Sorry, Brian, I'm giving away your secrets, man. But
Yeah.
but I asked them, and he hadn't sent it to them.
Oh no.
So if you're listening to this and you didn't get that, maybe it was just
Hopefully it's not Jeff Randall. I think he'd be really offended.
no kidding. You know what? Maybe it was just you and I sent it to. Let's just go with that. We'll just go with
Okay,
that.
Yeah, we're his favorites.
And
But no,
he
there's a lot of guys that I'm in touch with. Ben Hamola, he actually plays with Dashboard Confessional, but also he was out with Brand New for a long time. He was Brian's tech, and then they ended up doing like dueling drums on stage, and Ben got to play on a few songs, and that developed his own career to go on to play with one like of the bands that he grew up listening to. I think that's always incredible when
No kidding.
an artist ends up playing for the band that inspired them.
Yes.
One of the most recent examples of that I've seen is Jay Weinberg, actually, with Slipknot.
Right.
He touches on that. that I think Slipknot, I had interviewed Jay, and that's one of like our Sound Legacy videos. And I believe he said that Slipknot was the first band he ever went to see live. I don't quote me on that, but at least one of the first. And now look at, he's playing for Slipknot. I mean, how cool. But same with Ben. Ben was saying, you know, I used to drive around in high school listening to Dashboard, and now I'm playing with Dashboard. And I joked with him because I was like, oh, I used to drive around listening to Dashboard too, and now I'm providing cymbals for you guys. Like,
that's way
it's
too
kind
cool.
of the same surreal thing. So
I feel like you and I have the same background in some music stuff, because right away Dashboard was a big thing. Taking Back Sunday, there's like all those. Yeah,
I
totally.
just got Get Up Kids on vinyl from my friend.
Nice.
To listen to the Get Up Kids, but yeah, I was excited about that. So
very cool, and that's cool. You got vinyl. I just recently, there's actually a company that's close to where I live in Hamilton. I live in Hamilton, guys, south of Toronto. And there's this company that's sprung up where what they're doing is they're actually doing a new tech way that doesn't compromise sound but accelerates the process of printing vinyl. Because right now, I don't know if people listening know this, but there's a huge, it takes forever to get vinyl right now. There's like a big, so anyways, side note, I digress. That's really cool.
Fascinating to me.
Do you have some other stories of meeting different drummers, or maybe even let's talk interviews for a second? So you've done a bunch of interviews. I did not know that. Now I'm nervous and my hands are shaking, but no one can see that. So who are some people you've interviewed?
So I've interviewed Dennis Chambers, which was another like really big one.
Cool.
Which was fascinating. I learned that when he was like 11 years old, he was playing in a club. And this is like Dennis's story. I'm not going to take any credit for this, but it's in our video. But he says that James Brown was in the back of the club listening to him play.
Get out.
And sent one of his guys up to like Dennis at the end and was like, James Brown is here and really loves your playing.
Get out.
Yeah, and was like, wants to know if you'll play for him. And then Dennis's response was, he's going to have to ask my mom.
Get out of here.
That was like, what? And then
oh, man.
James Brown called his mother.
No.
Asked permission. And then, like, this is so crazy. And then his mother said, well, is there going to be a tutor on the tour? Because I want him to have an education. And James Brown actually said no. His education will be like being on the road with me. And his mom said no.
Oh, no.
Yeah, Dennis missed out on playing.
No, Dennis's mom. What are you doing?
Right? But you know what? I think Dennis has had a majorly successful career.
Yes.
And he's educated, so that's great.
That is way too funny. That is insane. I had a very similar, I didn't have a James Brown moment, but I had a moment where growing up skateboarding, and my mom told me years later, but I had an offer from a decent company for a skateboard deal, but the guy that called her, we had met at a skate competition, and she got a weird vibe from him. So she turned him down and said no, that I didn't want the deal. Totally compromised my skate career, Mom. Which is
I didn't even know you skated.
Yeah, skateboarding was my first love. It's funny. It was like skateboarding, and then I feel like I'm getting interviewed now, but I
know, twist the.
That's right. Well, if there's anyone to interview me, it's you, so you can fire some questions. But I grew up skating and tore some ligaments in my left knee skating vert on for any skaters out there doing a blunt to fakie. Caught the coping with my left heel, bent my knee in, tore some ligaments. And then I had already been drumming. Yeah. And it was one of those like, you know what? I have nothing else to do. I'm just going to sit and play drums all day. Because I was like, grade 7 or 8, I think. And I was a serious skater from... My dad gave me a banana board when I was like in grade 1. And I would just cruise around the driveway, and literally in grade 1. And then all the way until like grade 7-ish, I skated pretty intensely. And started drumming, around that grade 6 age. And then... that transition was like, I just fell in love with drums. And I remember saying to my mom while I was in grade 7, tore ligaments in my knee and said, "Mom, how am I gonna like support a family doing skateboarding if I'm gonna like get
Yeah.
hurt?" I was thinking way too far ahead at that age too. So, little background on me.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was actually yesterday. I was hanging out with a bunch of BMX guys, bike riders. My bass player in one of my bands is like huge into BMX, but he actually messed up his leg and then started focusing more on music. So similar story.
Okay, you just dropped a bomb right there. One of your bands.
Yeah.
Tell us about your bands.
So I play in two bands. One is an original band. It's a trio, and we're called Fluorescent Hums. That's with Andrew, the bass player, BMX
And where
extraordinaire.
where can people find you if they're interested?
We're on Spotify
Okay.
and iTunes, but
Fluorescent Hums.
yeah,
Okay,
fluorescent is hard to spell, but
it is. So that'll be in the show notes for everybody to check out.
yeah, totally.
But real quick, spell that for us anyway. See if I
So
spelled it right.
it's FLUORESCENT, and
I
then
totally
space.
flipped the U and the O. Whoops.
The U and the O gets everybody. I mean, it got us. We didn't even know how to spell it. So. We're named after the annoying fluorescent hum from the lights, the fluorescent lights, in our original practice space. So I'm sure there's been a lot of people out there. I wasn't practicing in this elaborate studio just because I work at Zildjian. It was one of those broken down warehouses with the lights buzzing and you wish the heat worked kind of places.
Oh man.
But that's where we got our band name. So
And there's always multiple jam spaces in these types of buildings with the one band that's like the Weekend Warrior band covering. You walk in and it's like the most typical, Guns N' Roses song or just something.
Oh, absolutely. We were surrounded by actually like death metal and like hardcore on either side of us, which one of them was my friend Matt, who I love, but and he's amazing. His drumming is incredible, but it made it really hard to concentrate on
No kidding.
writing our more alternative music.
Oh man.
But yeah, so
That is
that's
too
always a
funny.
challenge. And trying to time practice, you're like, okay, well, it seems like they're practicing on Tuesdays. Let's try Wednesdays. And then, of course, the next week they'd practice on Wednesday. So that would never
That's right. They're just there every minute of the day.
You're like, wait a second, do you live here?
Oh shoot! By the way, fun fact: I've heard that fluorescent hums are actually like a B flat. That's the note of most devices that hum is a B flat. Check that fact out. Yeah, so a lot of things like same thing. I have lights that hum. Even things like I'm pretty sure like refrigerators, dishwashers.
Right.
Like a lot of them hum at a B flat, and now that could be way wrong. But I've heard a lot of industrial things. That's the note.
Well, it's weird that you say that because
You guys just wrote a song in B flat.
no, we had a song that's called "To Be or Not to Be Flat."
No.
I swear to God. I swear.
Oh.
We actually changed it to Be or Not to Be Sharp because apparently it was like a Simpsons reference. My guitarist is really into The Simpsons. Yeah, so anyway. But
very cool.
that is an actual fact.
And the irony of, that's too
in the
funny.
irony of like B sharp, yeah.
The irony of B sharp is that it's C, but
That's the whole joke. Yeah, it just became right.
I love it.
For all
Okay.
us music nerds out there.
Okay, so I'm gonna pull us back on track. You get in at 9. You spend the first little bit adjusting, probably getting. Do you have a coffee in the morning?
I actually don't drink coffee, and my coworker Kirsten on the West Coast actually said that's frightening, and she's not usually friends with people that don't drink coffee.
Yeah.
But she made an exception for me, so
There you go. So you have a green tea in the morning.
I do drink tea. I actually drink orange juice. That's like my morning ritual, which maybe that's lame, but that's my thing.
That's great. Full of vitamin C. So full cup of vitamin C, and then you get into the factory. You spend the first little bit answering some emails. That could go till 10. That could go to 11. And then what does the rest of your day look like? I'm sure that emails are kind of ongoing throughout the day. But what are some of the other things that you try and tackle? Are you involved in a lot of special projects?
Yeah, so Um, Usually I'll sort through my emails of some artists are more particular than others. So I decide like who needs to be specially selected for. A lot of times if you're sending out like a setup for a tour or something, I'll need to like pitch match the crashes to each other kind of thing. So generally I sort out what ones need to be selected from our, like we have, it's called the artist vault, and we have a small selection of every model that we make kept at Norwell factory.
Wow.
And it's just for artists, and it's probably between like 5 and 10 symbols of every model. So, and when I say that, I mean it's like there's 5 16s, there's like 5 17s, and then we'll have like 10 18s, 10 19s, 10 20s, because
Wow.
right now the it's more bigger is better. I'm finding anyway, more people playing larger. So, and I'm in charge of kind of keeping that well stocked, making sure that we have enough models in our inventory. And so I'm constantly keeping track of that. Summer season, it's crazy to like,
Oh
it'll
yeah.
like a week later and I'll be completely out of like a custom crashes and needing to restockpile them.
Now tell me, is there kind of a common theme of opinion around the bigger symbols thing within the Zildjian? Is there a little bit of like a behind closed doors, give me the dirty? Are people like this whole large symbol thing is a bad idea? Are there people who like you mentioned Jeff who's worked there forever. Is he like, man, people don't get it, big symbols aren't better? Like what's the impression on that?
Um, we tend to, I want to say like give the people what they want, but we recognize the trends, and the trend right now is for bigger symbols. I mean, people are using rides as crashes, and it's a fact, and it's interesting too because it is just trends. We find it's almost like a cycle.
Right.
Kind of make jokes about like circles and things at work, but
Ooh,
but
give me a joke. Do you have one on the top of your head?
I don't even know, man. Like it gets obnoxious. We
Yes.
always make the symbolic jokes and things like that. Um, but yeah, I was just like saying almost like fashion and stuff. You know, right now, big is in bigger hats. We used to make the 16K lights hats and stopped making them for a while, and now they're back because there was so much demand for it. Um, we came out recently, I guess it was last year, with the 23 Sweet Ride. We had already made the
Right.
21. The 23 is new. I was just in a production meeting where we talk about what's going to come out. So it's crazy. So, like NAMM just happened, right? And we're talking about what's up for next year. And just speaking to what we're speaking to, it's a little bit of what's up for next year.
And what do you feel like do you feel like there's a shift going on? Like, what would you say?
Yeah, I would say bigger and darker is what's up. But you never know, and we don't want to do away with things in case it were to circle back. And I was on the phone with somebody the other day, and we were talking though about how you can play bigger cymbals, but you can adjust to like if you're playing a smaller room, to play lighter or play to the room. Where if you're playing smaller cymbals,
Hmm.
you can't get bigger sound than they're going to give you. So that's kind of an interesting way of looking at it. That
It is.
you can play bigger cymbals and get less out of them, but you can't always play smaller cymbals and get more out of them, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So I don't think bigger is ever going to be a bad thing. I don't know if we're going to take it to the extreme. People will say like, "Will you make a 26?" or use like, I don't know if that's going to happen,
Right.
but there are a few on display in the factory that are amazing to look at. So
Yeah, no kidding. There was someone. I mean, it was a rival cymbal company, so we won't mention it. I can't remember the name of the company. It was one of those
Yeah.
like smaller cymbal companies, but they had what had to be like a 30-inch ride cymbal on
Oh, yeah.
display just for show.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's so fascinating. It's so cool. I mean, to make it and not have it break is like one thing. Like that's
yes,
impressive in itself.
it was like a bell, to be honest. Even hitting like towards the bow of the cymbal, it still sounded kind of like
Yeah,
a bell because they made it
because
so
you
thick.
can't make something so big and have it be too thin because it's gonna crack. Uh,
Absolutely.
yeah, but like it would be amazing if you could have something that huge and thin, but it would also be super impressive. But it also would probably break from play as well, you know.
Yes, no kidding.
But
Now,
yeah, so
let me ask you this. This is something I feel like you probably get in your inbox. I don't know. You can tell me how often you get this or people reach out to you directly. But let's talk about endorsements.
yeah,
How
absolutely.
often do you get people sending you something about getting an endorsement?
Yeah, so this is again this time of year post NAM is huge for whether I met people at NAM and they're following up or just this time of year they're not quite out yet on tour, so they want to establish relationships. So I always find like the January February is kind of huge. So I'm receiving multiple requests or interests or you know we have a process that we go through where we have an online application now to get like background info, and that's like one way. But some people like reach out directly, or I'm put in touch through somebody else. There's so many different ways that people will get in touch to inquire about endorsement, and it's amazing to me now. I think it's a constant shift for artist relations. Zildjian was actually, I believe, we're credited with being the first music company to establish artist relations
Wow.
in both regards for working with artists on getting their sound. So that dates back to the 30s and the jazz era, and recognizing that each individual has a different preference, and actually bringing those guys to the factory to help create their sound. I Well, we were like the only cymbal company then. I mean, that's a fact. I'm not trying to take away from anybody else. But so we were the only ones able to do that at the time. But to the same degree, I mean, that's something that's continued and also modeled after in more than just cymbals, in drums, in guitars, and I think we kind of set that precedent for working with artists directly. But we also established, and I think we credit it to the Beatles, the establishment of endorsement for the purpose of marketing and being seen, and
Wow.
that's attributed to the Ed Sullivan Show when Ringo was up there playing his Ludwigs and Zildjians for the world to see. And it was shortly after that. I believe the figure is we were on back order for 90,000 cymbals that year because
What?
people are like young boys and girls, I guess, around the world wanted to be the Beatles.
Mother, can you buy me some Zildjian
Yeah,
cymbals?
absolutely. And I'm sure there's a few of those kids that maybe never received them in the mail because there
No
was like
kidding. They're still waiting.
so many orders. It was outrageous. And recognizing that back then, we didn't have prominent logos displayed, but there were our symbols up there. And we being one of the only companies at the time there, so they hit up Zildjian. But recognizing that, and I think that's when we started stamping our logo, and recognizing what artists do and the influence that they have on society.
Wow.
So in that sense, Zildjian has kind of been the leader in artist relations, on both the personal front and on the marketing standpoint.
Well, what I thought was so cool is hanging out with you. I really quickly, it was actually also talking with a friend, Kyle Murphy at Remo.
Murphy is the name of my guitarist in my band.
That is way too funny.
But yeah,
What are the odds?
I know of Kyle Murphy every
I'm
day.
like naming your songs, naming your musicians.
I know.
And
Yeah.
one of the things we talked about was the age of companies, and he threw this out there that Zildjian, you can verify this, is either the oldest or one of the oldest companies in the world ever.
Yeah, so we are not the oldest company in the world, but we're the oldest family-owned company in the U.S. And I think we're one of the oldest companies in the U.S. as well. We're like in the top like 3. And what's interesting about that too is, I mean, we date back to 1623, which like, 1620, the Pilgrims or whatever. But so like the U.S. wasn't even established, but we didn't start in the U.S. So it's a confusing concept of, so we actually date back before the U.S. You know what I mean?
Oh my goodness.
But yeah, so we're almost 400 years old, which is so nuts. And yeah, it's something that's studied not only from a music perspective, but from a business perspective. And they'll have like colleges like studying the Zildjian business model, which is so crazy. Like, how does a company survive? We talk about like 50 years as a band. How does a company survive almost 400 years and a family-owned business on top of that? This is this. We're actually we're on the 14th generation, Craigie and Debbie Zildjian. Yeah, and which is why like Gen 16. The 16th generation is named after their grandchildren, which is pretty cool too. But yeah, so like that in itself, it's fascinating. It's incredible. And, I mean, that's a whole other subject, but like if you ever get a chance, like there's kind of like our timeline, dating back to the original Avidus discovering our metal to create cymbals, and taking you through today. And that's something that I give factory tours as well. So I could give you like the whole spiel right now. Like I've been doing it for a long time, but so I give factory tours to artists, and a lot of artists don't get to come to the factory because when they're out on tour or whatever,
sure,
they have strict schedules. And I mean, I'm sure many professional drummers can attest to this, that you don't have time to, in your day when you're playing a certain city, it's just like a ritual. It's like sound check and then, play and move on. But there's still plenty, I will say there's still plenty of guys that make it a priority. They know and they work their schedules out so that they can come, because it's not just about selecting cymbals there, which obviously is like a major highlight, but to learn about the company and then to see how the cymbals are made. I mean, it's pretty phenomenal.
It's not one of those moments where it's like, but Dave, I really want to go. Taylor, we don't have time for that. So Dave's like not letting Taylor Hawkins come check out the factory.
We wanted them to come in recently when they played Fenway.
No, Taylor, we can't go. We gotta do sound check. I've seen the factory. It's great, Taylor. Just trust me. Take my word for it.
I don't know if either of them have ever been to the factory, to be honest with you.
Get out of here.
But we couldn't get to, like, we were trying to work it out, and like Taylor was gonna come in.
Such a rock star.
It just like didn't happen. But like that's the thing. Like what? Like, and they love Zildjian, like, but
totally.
It's talk about schedules. Like, how can they not have come to the factory? Like,
that is insane. That is insane.
But yeah, I mean, I actually just like was going through some of my stats for the year. Like, so we do like reviews. I mean, like any business, I guess you do your self-assessment, and like just the number of like artists that have come through the factory. I mean, it's on average like 2 artists a week that come in. And there's obviously like lulls, like usually around the holidays and stuff. I don't get a lot of artists in at like December and stuff like that. But summertime, I could have an artist every day, and then the next week there's nobody. But
what's the most artists at once? Has there ever been a time when everyone decided that, February 14th was going to be their day?
Well, yeah. So I've had 3 or 4 artists in one day. Kirsten actually, she's West Coast, and it's like Studio City out there,
Yeah.
and
Is she based in LA?
she's based in Burbank. That's
Okay.
where our West Coast office is, and she. I mean, I think I get like a lot of artists. She's hit up all the time because everybody's like, "Oh, it's right down the street. Like we're recording. Like let's just schedule and visit, or let's just pop in." Where we're not as convenient a location to just pop into. So I would say her numbers are at least double mine, if not.
Wow.
But that's primarily like that's a huge part of her job is artist visits, even more so than mine. The difference being that like we have the factory, so the visits tend to, it takes at least an hour to see the factory and things like that. So it's a little bit more detailed at headquarters, where hers are specific to cymbal selection.
Yes.
But yeah, so artist visits is a big part of my job too.
Very cool. Now, I'll get us back because you and I are having so much fun chatting. There was a point when we were talking about endorsements, and we
Yeah.
got completely sidetracked, which is totally cool.
So what I was saying, I know I like went back to like the beginning of endorsements.
It was both our fault. I started pretending I was, Dave and Taylor Hawkins, so it's okay.
Yeah, you did a good impression though. I liked it. Um,
So you
yeah,
do a bit of a
so
screening by getting people to.
we have like to gather like preliminary information. And I find that, there's like certain things that I'm looking at, but it's not just like a checkbox. Like, do you meet these requirements? You're an artist, and a lot of times people will say, well, then is it subjective? Is it just who you like? And it's not that either. And in this industry, I mean, it's constantly changing, even to recently, where a lot of artists that we've signed wouldn't have been somebody that we would have signed a couple of years ago, based on online and social media, and how do we integrate. I mean, that's a form of people being seen every day. Yeah, they're not out on stage, but people are like thousands of people are watching their videos, or so. And how do we redefine artist relations? So we're constantly like restructuring in that sense. A lot of, for like the typical I want to say like drummers that are out touring, which is still the majority of what we're looking at. There's a process in which sometimes I'm not positive they might be somebody that will take off, or their band might not take off, but I'm really intrigued by their drumming. And so sometimes we don't do official deals right away, which I don't view as a negative. I think it's quite a compliment, whether we offer like an industry discount for like purchasing cymbals, or swapping out, like if they have some broken cymbals, we want them obviously playing good product. They're already choosing to play our product. To me, it's like a no-brainer. And we'll kind of like keep in touch. And that's a lot of times how we'll start establishing relationships.
Right.
And there's different tiers of or levels of artists. And I always say, like, people will say, like, what's your A-level artist? And it's like, you're not signed as like an A-level art. Like Dennis Chambers would be like an A-level artist or something, but he doesn't have a contract that says signed as an A-level artist, like we just consider it's almost like a hypothetical thing. But there's different levels in that, like Justin Bieber just got a new drummer, and it's funny because his name is Devin, and he goes by like Sticks. And we were actually in contact.
There are for one, real quick, if anyone's listening to this, heads up, the nickname Sticks is well taken, guys.
I know, it's ridiculous.
It is pretty crazy. We've had 2 guys already on the show that are Sticks. Marcus Finney.
Finney Sticks, yeah.
Yeah, and Sticks, Keith Sticks McJimson. So that nickname is, I just met Rihanna's drummer the other day, Michael, and his last name was saved in my phone as Sticks, which I'm pretty positive is not his last name, but...
Right. Well, Devin Taylor, it's the same thing. Sticks Taylor, but
too much fun. Too much fun.
I was in touch with him through actually talk about nicknames. Skeeter McMillan, but I call him Skeet the Beat. That's his name on like Twitter and Instagram and stuff. And he's like
Nice.
saved in my phone as Skeet the Beat.
Skeet the Beat.
But he was like, this kid, he's young, he's on the scene, he's out there, he's doing it, he's picking up like a lot of like one-offs. And I was in touch with Devin before he even got the Justin gig. And
Cool.
I was like, absolutely, like he's one to look out for. Like we love that. And, you know, we want to be there before like they get the big gig kind of thing. And it was incredible because literally I want to say Skeeter reached out to me maybe in like November, and then Devin got this gig. And it was like, I'm glad that I was aware of him, but how fast that turnaround happened. I mean, that was the first that I had heard of him. And then here he is, he's got this gig, and we're signing him January 2016. But he was already on my radar before he became an official artist. And it was almost like you knew that he was going to get that big. And that's like, you know, that's a rare occasion too, that you get such a huge gig that quickly and stuff. But a lot of times it's more in the making, you know, and I always say there's almost like the Warped Tour circuit, which is, you know, we have a lot of those guys that have played Warped Tour. And to me, I feel like that's huge, like exposure kind of thing. And having a lot of those guys playing Zildjian, and you don't know if they're going to go next level or not, but there's a lot of risk in it, and you don't know. But at the same time, I feel like it's just a lot of like taking chances. And but what I first and foremost want to see is the dedication and the effort when a potential artist comes to me. You know, to me it's about the passion, and it's seeing that and recognizing that. And, you know, maybe I don't want to say they're not there yet or something like that, but I feel like you need to be able to recognize that, you know what, this guy, he's out there, he's doing it. He might not be doing it that he's recognized worldwide, but that doesn't matter to me, as long as I see the potential, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I don't know if that answers your question or if that was like a huge runaround.
I think that's I think that perfectly outlines that you guys are looking for brand ambassadors, people who are not just reaching out to get free cymbals, people who are already sporting and excited about what Zildjian's doing. You're looking for artists that are taking advantage of things like social media to you know, broadcast their ability and their skill and leverage a platform. And, you know, what we talked about so far was there's kind of like a tiered system where there's almost skill, visibility, and then brand support and influence. And those things are all somewhat different because Justin Bieber's drummer, the one we were just talking about with Devin, he had the skill, and he didn't have that opportunity or that influence just yet, but it just arrived, and you guys were already noticing him because of the skill. So
exactly. So yeah, it's multiple things that come together to kind of make it whole. And you said it, but just to me, we want people that want to play our product, you know. And first and foremost, to me, it's like sound is key. You know, I don't want you just playing it just to play it. Does it mean something to you? And, you know, do you have like an established relationship, or like this isn't like a shopping trip, you know, like, I mean, obviously like compare brands, but like, does Zildjian stand out to you? Is Zildjian the brand that you want to play because that's what you're hearing? And that's so important to us. And we're constantly trying to offer something for everybody. That's why we're coming out with new product, you know, to fulfill all the sounds needed. But beyond that, our artist relations department, I always, and I speak for the whole department in that we pride ourselves in our communication and in our relationships. So first and foremost, that you're playing the product that you want to play, but knowing that you're going to receive the service and that there's a relationship there as well. I mean, I want to be able to say that I believe all of our artists can rely on us 100% to get them what they need when they need it, and also be able to help them to find their sound. You know, not everybody is an expert, and we're not experts either, but it's working together to get to where you need to be for your sound. And I think that's huge, and I think that's something that our department really offers and wants every artist that we have to achieve. And I think we are looked at in a good way, or I hope so.
Yeah, I would absolutely say so, and I think that that's consistent. Seeing the way every rep, with Zildjian at NAMM responded to people, I was observing for sure. I'm watching, and I was seeing just such great insight. I mean, I had someone, they had no idea who I was or what I did, and right away he's like, come check out the newest line, come check out this. What do you think of this? And he was like walking around showing me everything, So
Yeah, absolutely.
that speaks. That says a lot. What do you think? Because we talked a little bit earlier about Zildjian's business model, just from the standpoint of it having, like with wine, in time, it's consistently become better and better. What would you say are the qualities you see within the company that have helped it, stand the test of time?
Yeah, so I had sort of touched on it as recognizing the trends and staying on top of things, but like you said, consistency wise,
Right.
incredible where we've come in just the last, I want to say 30 years, even just being at the new facility that we're at. The making of the cymbals, for one, they are constantly improving upon, there's no such thing as perfecting it. But we're like accuracy wise of where we want our product to be. I mean, we run at like 97, 99%, which is incredible. And what we pride ourselves in, and this isn't like I'm giving away a secret or anything, but no two cymbals sound exactly alike in the Zildjian library. And, you'll have two 17A custom, like stereotypical bright crashes, and they're marked the same and they were made the same day, but guess what? They're not the same cymbal. And that, to me, is what's so cool, is that every single drummer, at least for Zildjian, I mean, this is our model, and, to different companies, it makes sense to have different models, but we pride ourselves in that nobody has the same palette or nobody has the same setup exactly. Which is why it's funny, like when people will be like, I want blah, blah, blah setup. And it's like, all right, you can have blah, blah, blah setup, but it's never going to sound exactly the same for two reasons. One being that no two cymbals sound exactly the same, and no two drummers sound exactly the same.
There you go. Huge.
So that's huge. And that's something that everybody needs to recognize, because we're all individuals and our cymbals are all individuals as well.
It couldn't be more true. I mean, we've had so many drummers in at 180, and so many of them, including, Steve Augustine, are all using Zildjian. And the thing that's interesting is hearing how it'll be the same cymbal, but just different guys playing it, and the sound totally changes from, whether it's, Marcus Finney, who's got a background in fusion, jazz, and then we switch over and we've got Stanley Randolph, who's, playing with Stevie, and the touch is it's totally different. Both great drummers, but totally different.
We talk about an interesting concept being same cymbal, like different genres, or same cymbal, different artists,
Right.
And I think that's a fascinating thing in itself, that maybe isn't touched upon enough, but it's such a cool thing, right? That you could be playing the same thing and make it sound so different.
Well, it's so funny to me because I'm sure the original, run back to the very beginning, making the 22-inch K-Light ride, I guarantee you no one was thinking drummers are going to be beating the snot out of the cymbal.
Yeah, right?
Right? That wasn't its initial thing. It's culture.
Yeah, absolutely.
And those are great cymbals. Anyone that's never checked out, I mean, this is maybe I'm outspeaking my bounds, but I think anybody who's been really lately into the big cymbal thing, and there's been a lot of companies that have allowed their entire, I'd say almost their entire what they do as a company is
Mm,
following a trend, which is
yeah,
potentially really dangerous.
yeah,
I wouldn't even say potentially, I just say it straight up is very risky.
right,
And that's a choice. But what I think is so cool is that Zildjian, I mean, you guys were kind of the first to the party when it comes to that K light sound, which is
right.
what I feel like a lot of this is after is the dark thin, which you
Yep.
guys have a line.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it's interesting. I just think it's very interesting to see, how trends kind of follow and different companies market it different ways. So, and that's not to say that I don't think other cymbal companies are great too. I just think it's really cool. It's really cool to see where things originate from.
Absolutely. Yep. And I think we can all say that it's important to look towards competition and what others are doing and how you can make it your own and how you can make it different. And that's kind of what the business world is all about anyway, right? I mean, uh,
Absolutely.
so but yeah, and to that point, I mean, seems important to follow trends, but also recognize the trends of the past and always
Yes.
keep them
At
keep
bay.
'em yeah,
Yeah, totally.
absolutely.
Okay, that's amazing. Well, I don't need to steal too much more of your time because for everybody listening to this, they're probably getting the intro and a whole bunch of other things for audio, but Emily and I have been talking for an hour and a half straight, and the conversation hasn't lulled, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Emily, you are into the time frame and the class of podcast interviewer that very few others enter into. So congratulations.
Well, thanks. I was really nervous that I would have no idea what to talk about. So
Oh, that's hilarious. Well, we talked about a lot of off the cuff things, which is exciting. I mean, that's what I think is something that you probably enjoy because you listen to this podcast as well, is that it's personal.
yeah, absolutely.
So let me ask you this. We've gone through a bunch of different things really quickly. What was your other band's name? You listed
Oh, totally. Yeah. So my other band is called Allie and the Biddies. I got to give them a shout out.
Allie and the Biddies. I
Yeah,
love that.
it's my all girl band featuring not all girls anymore because we have a male guitarist, Adam.
You're not allowed to say that. You're not allowed to say my all girl band featuring a
Yeah,
guy.
I know it's not allowed anymore. So we are not an all girl band. We started out that way, but he's a biddy now. So I don't know what that means, actually. We don't even really know what that word means,
That's
but
funny. I grew up hearing that word as well, but I don't know what it means.
yeah.
Maybe this podcast just became remarkably explicit with the word biddy.
Okay, yeah, hopefully it's not like too derogatory. I don't
Yeah,
know. But we picture it as like a bunch of old biddies, like we're just kind of here's
cool.
Allie, the lead singer. She's amazing, and we just back her up. But it was a joke, and it's not supposed to be that. We're a band and we all work together, but we just kind of like to tease that it's her band and we're just her biddies.
I love
Um,
it. And you
but
guys are
yeah,
mostly a cover band.
we're a cover band, and that's the thing. I mean, I play for fun. I play for pleasure. I'm not out. I know that I'm not the best drummer in the world, and I get to work with some of the best drummers in the world. But when I go home and I get to go to band practice, I'm playing for myself and I'm playing for my enjoyment, and I get to play out at like local bars and stuff, and that to me is fun. And that's, I mean, my life is music, my life is drums through and through, but it's separate from my job. I'm not thinking about the cymbals I'm playing at the time. I'm just thinking about being in the moment and enjoying playing.
Very cool.
And that's what that offers me. And it's good friends and it's good music and we just have fun with it.
Oh,
So
that's way too cool. Now, let me ask you this. I've got a couple rapid pace questions. Your answers don't have to be rapid, but we'll try and go through these.
let's
When
do it.
was your first paid gig?
My first paid gig. Um, geez, probably high school at some point. I don't know.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Some bar somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay, who do you view as successful?
Who do I view as successful?
Yep. Doesn't have to be a drummer. Could be anybody.
Does it have to be like a specific person?
No, it could be your mom. It could be Richard Branson.
Okay. So, because I was gonna say like I view success as being happy with what you do, but like that's not a specific person.
Well, you could who do you know that embodies that really well?
I would say,
Emily, we got to work on your friends.
geez, man, I got no friends, man. No, I actually, one of my really good friends, Brooke, she owns a theater company and she gets to work with kids every day and do what she
Cool.
loves to that degree. I mean, I admire my boss, Sarah, who's a full-time mom, but is a full-time employee at Zildjian and gets to encapsulate, her two jobs and my own parents,
Yeah,
So,
that's a
yeah,
great answer. So anybody who, has a happy life,
absolutely.
very
Yeah.
cool.
If you can do what you love, that to me is success.
If you could send a postcard to everybody in the world that's gonna get to their door, it'll be translated in their language. What would be like the few words that you'd want to share to the world?
Wow.
Deep.
That's so deep. This is intense questions. Um,
The goal is once you pass the hour and a half mark, it gets deep.
okay. All right. Wow, yeah, this is real deep. What would my postcard say?
Well, while you ponder that, I'll refresh everybody's memory on one of the ones that I thought was great.
Yeah,
Is
please.
Keith from the drummer for Ariana Grande, Styx McJimson, since
Mhm.
we want to talk about all these Styx names.
Yeah, it sticks to.
He had a great quote, and it was like ready. He had prepared it. He said, "Leave a ladder once you're at the top." I thought that was so cool. Is to say, there's a lot of people who get to the top, and then they're in a rush to try and pull up their ladder so that no one else can get up there with them. They want to be up there alone. And he said, "You will always want to leave a ladder once you make it to the top." So I
I
thought that
love
was cool.
that. Wow. Well, I want to be like philosophical and things here, but just
Well, so everybody knows I usually don't give any podcast guest any prep because I
right.
like it to be
No,
conversational.
I mean, I had a non-profit company. I won't even like touch on that, but
You have a nonprofit?
I did when I was in college. It was called Hold On Another Day, and
Come on.
and the whole thought behind it was that music is power, and how music can help us through life. Because for me, without music, I mean, I don't know. That's like the biggest thing that I rely on. So, I mean, I think it would just simply say what that mission statement was, that music is powerful. That would be my postcard for the world.
I think that's beautiful. Music is powerful. That's great. Because I think, yeah, a lot of us could probably remedy quite a few things if we just simply every day spent some time listening to music. I think that's awesome.
Right.
Very cool. Okay. Um, do you have any apps that you use? Like, what is your most used app? Like in Evernote, for example.
Well, I actually use the Notes app like it's going out of style.
Wow. Okay.
I'm like a constant. I had a problem with post-it notes for a while. Like at work, my whole desk was post-it notes, which is something that is very looked down upon. I think I don't know. People would like say that's not a good thing. But I was like organized. They were organized notes. But so now it's like on my phone so that people don't physically see it, which it would be terrible if I lost my notes. Like losing my phone, it would be like, what about my notes? Like, I think I can retrieve them through the email, but
They should be synced to your email, but you know what? Have you heard of Evernote?
no, I don't even like explore other notes.
Okay, well, after the show, you and I will talk because
Okay.
everybody here, I feel like I've probably talked about Evernote before, but Evernote is a massive company. They've done a great job building an app that I think everybody should have. I use it every single day of my life, multiple times a day, just
Okay.
like what you're describing. But what's cool is I can create notebooks. So I've got notebooks for 180 drums. I've got personal notes. I've got book ideas of future books that I want to write, where I keep all them in what's called. So it's like having virtual notebooks. And they're all separated and it's really well laid out and it's synced all the time. So I can have it on my phone. I can have it on my, right where I left off on my laptop or on an iPad. It's just brilliant.
It sounds like my dream.
It is your dream. That's why it's so funny. So I gave you the little pitch there, but I can tell you more about it later
So
for
you
sure.
told me my new favorite app.
There you go. You now have a new favorite app. Do you have a favorite book?
Favorite book. Um, Hmm.
Have you read any good music biographies? I
So
feel
I
like
actually I'm in the middle of reading Carrie Brownstein's book right now. Carrie Brownstein from Portlandia,
yeah,
recently known, but Sleater Kinney, you know,
yeah,
and I love it. It's so cool.
very cool.
Yeah, so I'm reading that right now. Yeah, I read a lot of like music biographies, and then I read books that are I feel like not really like intellectual or anything like that.
That's okay.
Just to try and like get my mind on like a story or something like that. Yeah.
That's great. Yes. In the same way, I can always have a few books on the go. Some of them are intellectual, some of them are just for fun, some of them are more just storytelling, all kinds of stuff. A lot of aphorisms, aphorisms. Um, what's one thing you think people would find surprising about you?
Hmm. I always go with like, well, now everybody knows like I'm a drummer, but when people meet me or something, like that's always my go-to for the answer. Like I had this guy here to analyze the energy of my house the other day, and he like asked me what my job was. It was like weird, awkward small talk. And then when I said that I played the drums, I got like the instant like insult, like you're so small. Like, can you really actually play? And like that kind of thing. Like,
Oh,
really?
shoot.
Like, do you have the energy? Like, what? Like, what are you trying to say
You're
to
like, dude, come down to my drum kit right now.
Yeah, right? Like, you
Yeah.
want to see me play? I'll show you. But I feel like that's not unusual because you know that. So,
Yes. That
uh,
is too funny.
but should I come up with something else?
No, that's great. That's perfect. That's great. This is the last question, are there any other drummers that you're really excited to meet that you haven't got to meet yet? Anyone that you're really looking forward to having a conversation with?
I've never met Dave Grohl. I've never even talked to him, even though he's Zildjian. But
I like the way you said that, the way it was like, I've never even got to talk to him. Like it'd be normal to have talked to Dave Grohl.
right, yeah, I guess that's not normal.
No, not at all.
But I just mean like there's certain people like, oh yeah, I emailed him yesterday, but no, not at all. Like I've never even been in touch with him. Like I'm pretty sure he doesn't know of my existence, which is fine.
I feel
Um,
like you just did a Dan Wiseman impression.
yeah,
That's another, everyone listening, that's another Zildjian folk. So
yeah.
very cool. Okay. That's the
Yeah,
guy. So we got to
Dave
get
Grohl.
Dave in touch. Have you you met Quest?
I just met Quest, and speaking of which, when I introduced myself to him, he was at NAMM, and I went over to the Ludwig booth to meet him because I was like, actually, Drew Scholes, I gotta give him credit. He plays for the band Train. He was like, "Oh, Questlove's over at the Ludwig booth right now." And he's like signing autographs about like his new kit that's out. And so I was like, oh my God, can we go? And he's like,
Nice.
so like we were like little kids going over. And so when we got to meet him, Yuli actually kind of, I feel really bad about this. I feel like this is like a celebrity thing and I'm not like this, but we had to like I had to get back at least to the Zildjian booth. So Yuli kind of let me jump in line a little bit.
That's nothing to feel bad about.
I don't know. I feel guilty about that because I'm not that kind of person.
Well, no, but you have a relationship. It's different than everyone who's like, Quest, I love you on Fallon. So
Yeah.
great. Big
Yeah.
fan. Watched you twice.
So I really did only have like, what's the like one thing you'll say? Like I felt like I was in that weird.
Oh, that's the
You say to him.
worst.
And so when I shook his hand, I just said, like,
You're
hi,
really tall.
stuff. And I blinked. I didn't know. And I said, I'm Emily. I said, I work for Zildjian. I've been selecting your cymbals for the past 4 years.
Cool. Well, that's
Which, like, I feel like that's pretty cool. And he's like, thanks. So
that's hilarious. That's the moment of like, hey, just so you know, Quest, I pick out your underwear.
Yeah, you don't know.
Oh, thank you. You're that girl. That's so
Yeah.
cool.
Thanks. That's great.
Awesome. Emily, you have been such a great guest. We have talked effortlessly for an hour and
Yeah.
40 minutes.
Wow. I don't
This
know
is-
if anyone's going to listen to me talk that much.
They
but-
sure will. If they're smart and they want to understand how to play Zildjian in the future, they will. So listen, thank you so much for your time. Any
You're
parting
so-
words for us? Is there anything we didn't cover?
Well, if we didn't, we're just going to have to talk again sometime.
Ah, boom. I love it. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Emily. We'll talk with you soon.
All right.
Big thanks to Emily for being a part of the podcast today. It was so cool to hear her talk about being a part of the Zildjian family and being a part of the Zildjian brand. Anyways, if you want a summary of today's podcast, maybe some highlights and some pictures, please go to 180drums.com/Emily S. If you enjoyed the podcast today, please go rate us. Maybe tell a friend. Maybe shout across the street at your neighbor and tell them about how awesome it was. You know, the usual. Anyways, that's it for this week. Stay tuned next week for another killer podcast from 180 Drums.